Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
All right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Dodge this.
Hello, and welcome to the Holy Moment Podcast, the podcast where we watch movies with you, discuss the moments that work, the moments that don't, and the moments that reflect truth in unexpected ways. Nathaniel, did this movie blow your mind? Did it open new avenues of thinking and ways of viewing the world around us? Did it make you doubt the reality wherein you live?
When you say blow my mind, how Arnold Schwarzenegger shot his wife through the head and blew her mind, then yeah, I would say this movie did blow my mind in quite a few ways that I was not prepared for. So I'm excited to get into it and dissect how Total Recall exploded my brain hole with new facts and knowledge about life and art, and mostly practical effects.
Yes, because as Nathaniel just alluded to, we are discussing the movie Total Recall. This movie came out in 1990, won an Oscar for Best Visual Effects, and was nominated for Best Sound Editing as well. It is directed by our very own Paul Verhoeven. I don't know why I said our very own. No connection to him.
And then when you said Paul, I was like, is this Paul Thomas Anderson again? He's coming back for a third time?
That'd be incredible. We should just do like a string of each category, right? For our next season should just be another Paul Thomas Anderson movie. Beautiful. But it stars the lovely governor or ex-governor of California, Arnold Schwarzenegger. And we have discussed Arnold Schwarzenegger in the podcast before. We have reviewed one of his other movies, Terminator. I think both of us were quite underwhelmed by that movie, much to the chagrin of many in our audience, no doubt.
Which I'm surprised about, because I'm curious. Terminator 100% definitely seemed like a much bigger phenomenon as far as a movie than Total Recall. And I'm curious, is it because it just so happened to get like greenlit and they made a bunch of sequels afterwards, which I know some people don't even like most of them, but like, is that why it's more remembered? Like I argue, like, they came out around the same time. They're both action movies. They're both starring Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm curious what made the Terminator, I guess, have better staying power than Total Recall. I know Total Recall had a 2012 revamp movie, but I don't think it had any spin-off or like any sequels. So I'm curious, just because I thought Total Recall was a much better movie than Terminator.
Oh, for sure. And I'm actually very excited to talk about this movie. It's my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, partially because like the concept is incredibly ambitious and interesting, and the action is over the top and gory but inventive. And in all of these respects, it improves upon like Terminator, right? It's not even comparable in my book. Terminator takes place on Earth. This takes place mostly on Mars, right? And the world building that it creates for this version of the future is so compelling. But yeah, I think that there's something to the fact that the Terminator movies, they have sequels, right? Sequels galore. And then Total Recall, I don't think it would work for it to have a sequel, just due to the nature of the ending, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah. I feel like you could definitely do a sequel, but it couldn't be. I feel like you couldn't. I mean, you can do anything in Hollywood with sequels. They'll connect anything to anything. Just look at Marvel. But I feel like to have a good sequel, Total Recall, it just has to be placed in the same world, but not following necessarily the same characters. That's how I think they could make the mechanics of like implanting memories and wiping memories, like that concept could continue. But as far as our main characters in the plot, we pretty much wrap that up. I think for me, because I'm really excited to talk about this high concept storyline. How I loved the storyline of this movie. So I think that's a big reason why I enjoyed it over the Terminator. But I think the big thing for me, it has to do with the characters, not necessarily the actors, especially because Arnold Schwarzenegger was in both, but the characters. In the Terminator, I did not care for Arnold Schwarzenegger, the Terminator. I get it. He's cold. He's calculated. He is a unstoppable moving force, and he might be moving an inch at a time, but he's unstoppable and he's going to get you. It just didn't do it for me. I thought it was boring and bland. And then I didn't like our main guy character. His name's on the tip of my tongue. What is his name?
Main guy character in this?
No, in Terminator.
I think his name is John Stewart or something.
Was it something super boring like that? That's funny. But anyway.
Yeah, it's John Smith or
Yeah, our main guy character I didn't enjoy. I will say I did like the main girl character in the Terminator. But the point is, I just didn't enjoy watching our characters. But I really, really enjoyed watching our characters in Total Recall. So I think that there's more reasons we get into, but just that really central point for the movie. Just the characters. Did I enjoy the journey they went on and who they were as characters? And I just feel like for the Terminator, I didn't as much, and I really did for Total Recall.
Yeah, the characters in the Terminator are sort of boring and they're not very memorable. Whereas in this movie, we have such an exciting ensemble of characters, right? That stick in your brain and for all the right reasons, right? There's that mutant taxi cab driver that ends up betraying our main characters. There's the governor of the colony, right? Who is undoubtedly an evil man, but there's some complexity there because he has a genuine affection for at least the spy version of our main character. You know, the badass love interest and lady with the three,
Triple tits.
boobs. Yeah,
You
for
can't
lack
be
of a better
triple
word.
tits. Well, Jeffrey, I think the real reason this movie spoke to a lot of people in this generation and that generation was because it really represented a part of our society that never gets talked about. And I just really appreciate that this movie highlighted the cucks out there in the audience. You know, the cuckolds that just love watching their wife get, uh, uh, taken by someone else. And I just feel like that was the main driving theme of this movie. Like, go be a cuck.
Yeah, I mean that's the takeaway I got from this. Right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure that was the targeted demographic for this movie is, hey, like if you enjoy um you know infidelity, on the part of your partner, not yourself, like you're loyal, uh, then check us out, have fun.
Even though the cuck in the movie got his arms ripped off by an elevator. So maybe the movie was anti-cuck, actually. Maybe this movie was this movie was a good Christian film with Christian morals. Love your wife, loves your husband, don't do no infidelity. That is
I
the
think
theme.
this movie is for the cucks, but it's a tragedy.
It's how the cucks see how society treats them. They're just
Yeah.
trying to love their wife, and at the end of the day, society rips their arms off.
Only the good die young.
Well, on that note, I think we've reviewed this movie.
Yeah. Tune in next time. Our social media is now you can find us at Instagram.
Yeah,
The
just
whole
email us
spiel.
at theholycuck@gmail.com. We'll make sure.
Yeah,
to
we're
get that
changing the name of the
email.
podcast. So
That's actually Jeffrey's personal email.
yeah. But characters. Let's start with characters then. Douglas Quaid. What are your thoughts on Douglas Quaid and Schwarzenegger's sort of portrayal of him?
I think Douglas Quaid is an awesome name. Douglas Quaid. You sound
I'm
like
surprised.
a bird. He sounds like a bird.
Yeah, I'm surprised that was the name of the construction worker and not the spy. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I really enjoyed him. I feel like okay, you know what's kind of funny? I think one of the reasons I enjoyed him so much is because and I'm not saying it was a bad portrayal because in the Terminator, again, he's supposed to be a robot. He's supposed to be cold, slow, and methodical and emotionless. That's like the character. That's great. But I think because right away, Arnold Schwarzenegger is kind of bigger than life. And I know he's not always viewed as the best actor. He's a very cheesy, over the top kind of action actor. And he's not going to win any acting awards for this movie. But I really enjoyed from like the minute we started. He was a character who was looking for something. He was a very watered down Neo in the Matrix. Something's off with his world. Something he can't put his finger on, but something slipping by and something deep, deep in his subconscious is screaming out to him, but he's too scared to do anything about it. And just right in that opening with the dream on Mars, where he's on Mars with this mystery woman, but then he falls down the ravine and his glass shatters and his head basically explodes and then he wakes up. And then you just get this for like the next 10, 15 minutes, you get this longing in him. He's searching for something. He wants to go to Mars. Why does he want to go to Mars? And I just feel like that insatiable desire of a character that they don't even understand, I really like that in characters. Like I mentioned in Neo. I also realized that I love movies, and I don't know why it took me so long to realize this, but movies that have to do with the mind, that have to do with memory specifically. pretty much any movie like Christopher Nolan, specifically like Inception, things where they take memories and they alter them, and the person themselves is having a hard time remembering what's going on. I really like concepts like that. So for all those reasons, I really like Douglas Quaid, and I think the big thing was there was this search, this urgency, something deep down was wrong with the universe. And I think that's just a really interesting concept when a character, it makes us automatically feel like our character is so much bigger than life. Like he said, I want to do more than this. I don't want to just be a construction worker. I'm meant for more. And immediately you want to go on this adventure with this character because you want to see them do more in life. Because honestly, often movies are sometimes forms of escapism. And we often, as characters and people in our own lives, not characters, but humans, we want to do more than what we're doing with. So we can relate to this idea of like, wait a minute, something deep down isn't right. I want more. Because at the end of the day, we have people crave to do excellence and crave to do good things and great things in the world. And so the fact that they're able to establish that desire in Douglas Quaid right off the bat, I really enjoyed.
See, this is the perfect escapist fantasy because we were following a character that is going through their own escapist fantasy, or they're accomplishing all that they've ever wanted to accomplish or dreamed of themselves accomplishing. And there is ambiguity as to whether or not this is real, right? Perhaps it is just a fantasy, right? Or is this fantasy real life, right? I love that ambiguity. And there are no easy answers by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I love the scene. Again, I knew, first off, I actually have watched the 2012 Total Recall. I also thought about doing a spoof when we started the episode of pulling Jeffrey's leg that I watched the wrong one, just because Jeffrey has now twice in the podcast watched the wrong version of a movie. But I did watch the 2012 version with my dad when I was like 13, 14. Don't remember much about it, but I've not seen this version. So suffice it to say, I didn't really know what was going to happen. So in that scene about kind of entering the third act, when Arnold Schwarzenegger's character made it to Mars and his like rebel girlfriend is there, or no, made it to Mars, and then he's in that hotel room with his wife and then the doctor who shows up and is like, hey, all of this it's all a memory. Like, we had an issue and you're not really on Mars. Like, think about it. It's so fantastical. How could any of this be real? Kind of like this Inception idea. You're just in a dream. And at the end of the day, he killed the guy and went on with his journey. But like, it could be argued that that guy was telling the truth and he really was still in this fake implanted memory. And like Jeffrey said, they don't imply that that's what's happening. They more or less imply it's the opposite, but you could argue that that is still true. And I like that ambiguity.
Like even the end, right? When he's talking to her about, like, I just had this terrible thought. What if this is just a fantasy? What if this is a fake memory, right? And she's like, kiss me before it ends then. And then we pan up and the screen goes white, right? As the glare of the sun consumes the screen. And that could be interpreted by some as an awakening, right? This is the moment where the dream ends.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I think there's enough wiggle room that you could interpret it as going one or the other way.
It's so similar. I wonder if Inception, I know Inception took a lot of inspiration from the animated movie Paprika, but I wonder if it took any inspiration from this, because Inception, he at the end of the movie, he spins his little spinny top and we hold on it and we hold on it and we hold on it and then we cut to the credits. But did it stop spinning? Is it actually a dream? Is it not? So I'm curious. I wonder if Christopher Nolan took any inspiration from Total Recall.
I'm so glad you talked about inspiration and Inception and The Matrix, because watching this movie for a second time, it sort of hit me that I think this movie is important, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's not just a high-octane action sci-fi flick. I think that this movie was the progenitor of a lot of ideas that we would see in later films, such as The Matrix, like the red and the blue pill, and Inception, playing with dreams and memory. Now, I actually haven't seen The Matrix, but
you haven't?
I cannot see that.
Wait.
I have not seen The Matrix.
We got to take a minute, Jeffrey. This is a big moment. I can finally shame you. You haven't seen The Matrix?
I know. That's like the movie that film bros.
It's my favorite movie of all time. I'm not a film bro, but yeah, it's my favorite movie of all time. We watched it sophomore year in college for my birthday. Weren't we friends at that point? Were you not there?
I think I couldn't make it for whatever reason.
Wow, you hear it here, folks. Jeffrey hates me. Yeah, funny enough, The Matrix was released really close to my birthday. My birthday is in August. And so it just happened to be my sophomore year. It was, I think it's 20th or something anniversary. So it was re-released in theaters. Unfortunately, we couldn't actually make it to the movie theaters, but we got to screen it on a big screen. I digress. The point is, Jeffrey hasn't seen a culturally important movie, and I have, so Jeffrey sucks. But yeah, that is my number one favorite movie, without a doubt, of all time.
Well, I mean, I saw this movie, and so basically that's me.
Yeah, no, it's like one for one. I'm happy you brought that up because, yeah, I just watching The Terminator, and again, I'm sure people who grew up with The Terminator and grew up in that time period are way more suited to talk about this and the connections of how it affected cinema and like the early 2000s and so on and so forth. But watching The Terminator, I picked up on some things and some of the relevance. But with Total Recall, I felt like I was like, oh, I feel like this movie has impacted so much more. Just with its really cool concept, with its practical effects and the character and the story, I just felt like it was one of those movies that could be seen in so many movies, is echoed through so many things. Where the Terminator to me just felt too like. Granted, I get that a really really obvious idea has to be done for the first time somewhere, and maybe that was the Terminator. But to me, the Terminator feels like kind of an obvious, boring. I don't. Okay. I'm sure people are going to hate me for this, so I'm not going to use the word boring. I did not hate the Terminator, but the Terminator just feels a little more standard. Like anyone could kind of come up with the concept. But granted, like I said, it had to be come up with some point. It had to be done the first time somewhere. And so maybe I'm just not giving the Terminator enough credit. But again, Total Recall feels like much more of an interesting, complex idea that definitely echoes and trickles down through cinema history.
Absolutely. As you said, I see the ripples that Total Recall created, right, in future movies. But we don't hear about Total Recall nearly as much.
Yeah.
Right? And it's a popular film, but I think that if you were to ask your average Joe Schmo, who doesn't really go to the movies all that often, hey, like, have you heard of The Terminator? He's like, of course I know The Terminator. Have you heard of Total Recall? Crickets.
Yeah. Or like when you ask, when you say Arnold Schwarzenegger, they think of the Terminator. And it's just surprising that he's become more, maybe he's become more iconic because it is more of a, there's a more of a visualization with Terminator. Once Arnold Schwarzenegger's body melts down and it's just the T-1000's skeleton frame. That's a very pop culture iconic thing that I think people can hold on for decades. That visual idea. The movie of Total Recall had a great visualization that I think definitely inspired a lot of sci-fi. But Arnold Schwarzenegger himself as a character visually wasn't like super memorable for any reason other than being Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean that scene where he's handling the jackhammer, that's pretty iconic.
Oh yeah,
freaking jacked.
I was about to bring that up.
Yeah, I couldn't help when I saw that scene.
Your normal, everyday, average guy, Arnold Schwarzenegger, handling a jackhammer and his rippling muscles, his shirt's nearly bursting at the seams.
When I saw that scene, I desperately want to see Arnold Schwarzenegger at his prime in a muscle competition against Zac Efron when he was in the Iron Claw, because we just talked about that movie a few weeks ago. I'm curious their size and muscle mass difference.
I think that Zac Efron was a bit like thicker, right? Bulkier. And I think that's because Arnold Schwarzenegger was not only a bodybuilder, he was an artist, right? And when I say that, I mean he was very intentional about how he sculpted his body. Right, he was all about the traditional Grecian idea of like symmetry, and he took ballet classes so that he could make more graceful poses in his bodybuilding competitions. And I saw a reel recently of him talking about and criticizing modern day bodybuilding, and that the focus is on muscle mass above all other considerations of aesthetics.
I forget that bodybuilding has a lot to do with aesthetics, and it's such a respectable thing. It's so impressive that people can hone their bodies to such amazing feats. But all that to be said, sorry, I didn't mean to turn this into an episode of just comparing the Terminator versus Total Recall. But I just since it was Jeffrey's idea to do a category this season of the Schwarzenegger category. So he picked Total Recall, so I picked Terminator, and they battled it out, and I think Jeffrey picked the best pick.
I love this movie. I think because it's heavy on the sci-fi, even heavier on the action, right? And that's saying something because it's so heavy on the sci-fi, right? And both are executed, in my opinion, incredibly well. And I think that one of the things that makes this sci-fi so compelling is this world, right? And I talked about it earlier, but the world building. The Martian colony with its psychic mutants that have been affected by the radiation seeping in through the faulty vents, and the culture that has Oh, speaking of the culture, right? And the rebels on these Martian bases, why aren't the glass domes bulletproof? That's the stupidest thing, in my opinion. It's like the gate where they're having people entered from the starships into the colony, right? It's like an airport security space, right? And anyone could very easily just shoot the dome and then send everyone flying. And that seems like such a big problem. This is where you're checking for guns, right?
It's because the technology of the guns have outclassed the technology of bulletproof glass. We're in the future, Jeffrey. These bullets are so strong. Let me raise you a better question about the Mars civilization. Why was the only people on Mars either military people or prostitutes? There was like no in between. I felt like I feel like the rebels were all prostitutes. I feel like every person we saw on Mars that wasn't in a uniform was a prostitute. And I just feel like on an economical base, that's not going to work out very well. But also, again, that's why I love this movie. It's bringing in the excluded, the cuckolds, the prostitutes. It's loving everyone. And isn't that why we love Total Recall? So inclusive.
I was going to say, I think that the main parties that are present on the faction, there would be the prostitutes, the soldiers, the bureaucrats, and the miners. And then I was going to make a joke about miners soliciting prostitutes, but
You realize maybe not the best joke.
maybe that wouldn't be the most tasteful.
I feel like the bureaucrats were like the same as the military. They're all in uniforms. And I don't know. I didn't see any miners. I just saw prostitutes.
Yeah, but the whole reason they're having people evacuate that mountain was that was where mining was happening.
But they didn't show
were
any.
extracting certain
They didn't show them.
minerals.
That was an empty mine hill. No miners to be
There's
seen.
the train that said I used to work at that mine before people started
Yeah.
being pushed out.
You
right?
used to. So guess what he does now for work?
Prostitution.
Exactly. Now you're
I
seeing
should
the
have seen
bigger
that. There should have
conspiracy
been-
theory.
There should have been more male prostitutes. They were underrepresented.
Yeah,
in the,
yeah.
the
I don't
club.
need triple tit and Thumbelina. I need a male prostitute. Well, now that we said the word prostitute 30 times in the span of 2 minutes.
Yeah, let's move on to I don't know, I kind of want to stick on that topic for a bit longer. No.
Yeah, I'm all here for it. Let's just get right to my holy moment.
Okay, so we've talked about Douglas Quaid. That whole process of revelation, right? I'm not who I thought I was, right? Only for that to happen again near the end of the movie, right? And there's this question of like, well, who am I? I thought I was this, now I'm that, and then, now I'm not this, and I'm actually that. There's that theme of identity that runs throughout this movie. Like, who are we at the end of the day? And there's this theory that who we are is identical to our memories. That if our memories were erased and new memories were implanted, we would not be the same. And then that was the main idea being toyed around with in this movie. How do you think that was executed? Do you have any thoughts on how that was done?
Yeah, I mean, I like I said earlier in the podcast, and I'm happy to talk about it now. I think the highlight of this movie was this high concept idea of memory and erasing memory and implanting memory and never being able to trust your own memory, and then just the falsehood of everything at that point. What if you can't trust your own memories? What can you trust? So I think that was just such a great concept because I didn't know much about this movie. So when he's on the train and he's like, "Oh, I really want to go to Mars, but I can't because my wife hates me." Stupid wife. And then he sees that ad for like, "Hey, we can implant memories into you." That's Total Recall. And I was like, at first I was like, okay, that's a cool concept to begin with. So then when he goes there and then they find out that someone had already erased his memories, and that's how they uncovered it by like, we're going to implant fake memories into your brain. And we found out that, wait a second, you have a bunch of missing memories. What's going on here? I just thought that's such a cool concept. I love the idea of the labyrinth in our own human brains. Like just the idea of repression. Like just think about it when humans go through traumatic things, when they go through, whether it's traumatic because something happened to them or something they did or guilt or shame, we as humans, without like science technology, we can literally lock away memories from ourselves. We can repress horrible things that happened to us as kids or horrible things we did as adults. And so it's just fascinating that this idea of implanting memories, because that's another thing, we can falsify memories. Like the whole concept of when you're like torture doesn't really work, because yeah, if you strap someone to a chair and torture them for hours, they're gonna tell you what you want to hear, regardless if it's true or not. How you would have these like cops interrogating these people, being like, "You murdered this person," and they do it for like 20 hours, starving them and like screaming at them and using torture tactics, and then eventually they admit it to like, "Yeah, I killed this person," and they genuinely believe they did, even though they didn't. So I think it's really cool how with Total Recall we can implant memories and we can erase memories, and we think, "Whoa, science fiction." But at the end of the day, the human brain is actually capable of doing that without any technology. The psyche of the brain is incredible. And so I think it's really fun to explore it in a more science fiction route, because I think it's just a way for us to digest it easily. Oh yeah, there's a machine that can like put fake memories in your brain, or there's a machine that can take memories out. But I think at the end of the day, I think it's cool that it's based in somewhat reality, and it's scary. It's scary to think like especially with the rise of AI. I was watching television earlier today, and an ad came on, and I was like, "Is this ad a completely AI? I'm pretty sure this ad is completely AI." And so this other idea of like, before how much longer are we not going to be able to trust the ads, and then the news and everything around us can be digitally formatted? Just how, what if someone could implement something in your brain? So yeah, I definitely do think this movie captured this very real fear that I think humans have had for a long time. What if I can't trust my own ideas, my memories, my thoughts? Who am I? And then you also could start to argue like more like schizophrenia, and then other mental illnesses, and just other things, that not being able to trust yourself, not being able to trust those around you, or like things that make you not trust other, paranoia. So I think this movie, this concept of fake memories and erasing memories, really dives into a fear that humans have had for a long time, and something we still face today.
Yeah, and on the point of AI, we're already entering a world where people are making AI videos of politicians and peddling them as real things, and we're also having politicians calling very real videos AI as means to deflect, and that's just going to become more and more common as time goes on. It's going to be harder and harder to demarcate truth from falsity. It's a very scary thing, and this movie plays into that fear very well.
Yeah, I'm not a nihilistic person whatsoever. I'm a very hopeful person, but part of me is just like, you know, science fiction. It's based on something that could hypothetically happen, and so we're just waiting to see which science fiction movie we're actually going to live out. Are we going to live out, Blade Runner? Is it going to be something more like this movie, like Total Recall? What type of science fiction are we going to find ourselves in
Maybe
50,
it's
60, 100 years, 200
Meet
years?
the Robinsons, you know? The bowler hat guy, and
You're right. I should be hopeful that if we could end up like Meet the Robinsons, then it's a good day indeed.
I'm glad he actually brought up visions of the future, because something that I'd find so interesting is watching these movies from the 80s, 90s, like 60s, 70s, and seeing how they envisioned the future going. Just think 2001: A Space Odyssey, right? 2001 was squarely in the future for the makers of that film. And now it's far behind us. And so, but what were your thoughts on this particular interpretation of the future? What are some ways in which our current technology surpasses it, and other ways in which you're like, oh, I mean, it'd be cool if we had that. Maybe we're not far off.
Oh, that's a great question. I've said it on the podcast before, but I'll say it again just to make my stance on it very clear. I don't usually like sci-fi. I could get into it, but I'm just gonna leave it at this. I have a hard time relating to science fiction. Very much how when Jeffrey made me watch Who Framed Roger Rabbit and The Muppets, I have a hard time relating to mixed media, because it confuses my brain on how to relate to the characters. If it's all animation, it's easy. If it's all live action, it's easy. If it's mixed media, I have an actual hard time relating and connecting emotionally with the story. It's the same with science fiction. I find myself very lost in the world they create, and things, especially this movie wasn't as bad because this movie is very grounded, but I don't like things like Star Wars and Star Trek, things where they're planet hopping. I do not like, because there's no grounded sense of where I'm at and what's going on. And often I feel science fiction movies are the story is forsaken for a cool world the director wanted to make, or maybe not as worse, but just as bad. Science fiction is often adapted from books or older media, and that works. Books works great for science fiction. You have so much time to explore and delve into the mechanics of how each planet and society and economics work. But when it translates to movie, it often translates very poor. I'm not saying all science fiction is bad. I just want to create my stance on. I don't usually like science fiction for those reasons. That being said, I like this science fiction world. The science fiction world is very easy to grasp and to relate to. I didn't feel like there was any barrier because if there was aliens or mutants, we're on Earth and we're on Mars, just like two locations. It wasn't too hard to grasp. That being said, as far as like the actual technology, I won't lie. I actually think the coolest technology, and no joke, in the entire movie was that secretary's ability to change her fingernails
Oh
like
yeah.
on an iPad. That was so, and also not only cool, really good special effects. Like,
It was
I mean,
impressive.
even nowadays, like yeah, like even today, like I'm not saying that's complicated, like it's not, but like it was one of the most smooth. Like a lot of everything else was practical effects and looked like you could tell, like oh wow, that's like a dude's like a fleshy body stitched onto another dude's real stomach. Like you could tell it was like awesome, cool, really fun practical effects. But how she changed her fingernails looked digital. It looked really good and really clean.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite small instance of. I mean, it's hard to say it's my favorite piece of VFX, but it was the most effectively done, right? And that it was the most believable.
I also liked getting onto airplanes would be a whole lot faster if the TSA had that big ass wall of like X-ray. So instead of like having to slow down to walk, you could just like walk right through it. Also, weird thing. So this X-ray machine, it's like 12 feet tall, like 30 feet long. So this huge wall, and you walk past it. When you walk past it, you're completely a skeleton. However, it doesn't show you the insides of bags, but it does show you if there's guns. So it seems like this X-ray machine can only locate guns. It's not like, oh, look, this dude has like heroin in his bag, or this dude has a knife in his bag. Because we see the people walk through the X-ray and they can see their skeletons, but then the bags are like completely black. Unless these people are carrying around empty bags, which would be funny.
That would be. That's like a good point. And we don't see anything in their pockets either. And they do have X-ray machines at the airport, but they put them through this machine so that we're not getting exposed to radiation and getting
You're
cancer.
right.
All
All
the time.
those people are just going to be dead of cancer. Another thing, they had a lot of subways, oh, I know. The taxi cab, I made this note, was horrifying. Imagine, because he goes to Total Recall. He wants to have memories of Mars implanted, but they find out he actually has erased memories, and they're like, crap. If we get found out, like the government erases memories. If they find out we messed up, they're going to come kill us. So they're like, wipe his memory, throw him in a cab. Okay, so I painted the picture. Imagine you wake up in this cab and this ungodly, uncanny valley, like stitched on face on an android turns around the cab and is like, where can I take you today, sir? I would freak out. That thing is way less advanced than a Tesla. It is horrifying.
Yeah, I mean, I guess he would have been used to it, right? Seeing as those taxi cabs are everywhere in that world. But I don't think that they ought to have gotten used to it, right? I think that technology should have like died in the boardroom where that idea was pitched, right?
It's like the idea was fine, but then when someone came and brought like the practical prototype, they should have fired that man very quickly. Put him in jail.
Yeah. So I imagine it's the same people that were behind like the rebrand of Cracker Barrel that went so poorly.
It also had to be the same people. Remember what, like 5-6 years ago, was it Nokia or Samsung, and how their phones would just spontaneously explode,
Yeah.
and how that taxi cab kind like, remember when he was in the taxi cab running away from the people and he went into like the warehouse, and didn't the car kind of just like start driving and then explode? Do you remember that? It was weird.
Yeah. I do.
It wasn't like he like ran it into a wall and then exploded. There was something weird about it. It just kind of like decided to explode, and I didn't understand.
Yeah. Didn't he sort of try to take charge of the vehicle, right? Such that it wasn't
Yes.
on
Yep.
autopilot anymore. Maybe that
Yeah,
interfered with programming, but
that's fair. Yeah, but I guess that's most of the technology I can remember. What I guess he had the fun little spy gadget of having the watch where it duplicated him, so they can have that little fun shoot off at the
It's
end.
called Chekhov's gun. I think that was set up very well and executed beautifully. And then the scene where, like, they see the hologram, they're shooting at the hologram, it's not him, and then later he shows up in front of some guys like, ha ha ha, you think this is the real me? Well, it is. Just
And then just explodes them with bullet holes.
yeah.
I like that it's like your classic blasters. Like they look way worse than real guns, but somehow maybe shoot deadly lasers or bullets. We don't really know. Trying to think. I mean, I feel like as far as technology, besides the memory erasing and memory implanting, that's really cool and high concept. Everything else is like pretty, like I don't know, like just what you would expect. Nothing too crazy. Besides the finger shit color paint nail thing, that was really cool. I like digital paint is cool.
Yeah, for sure. I wonder, like, if you're painting screens onto your fingernails, and then they're touch screens, perhaps. Trying to figure out how.
Well, I assume it's some type of like nano paints, like paint embedded with some type of like nanotechnology, and so then you can control it from your iPad.
Yeah, I mean, you have those massive drills as well, um, which contributed to the feeling that this space was lived in, right? This colony felt dirty and grimy, and people were hustling and bustling and vying for each other's business. And that's something I really appreciated about this movie. It wasn't a sterile sci-fi. It was very much a world that people inhabited.
Yeah, and those people were prostitutes. Yeah,
And
100%.
taxi drivers.
No, why would you live on Mars? And taxi drivers who has five kids to feed,
Yeah.
as one would know.
I mean,
Why would you like want to live on Mars?
I have to imagine that it pays incredibly well. You have jobs on oil rigs, right, that are incredibly dangerous. And the thing that brings people there would be the money. And perhaps they send that money home to people on Earth. Or perhaps their idea is, I'm going to stay here, I'm going to save a buttload of money, and then I'm going to get out of this hellhole. But then perhaps there are systems in place that keep people there as well. Like there's a pretty heavy club scene. I'd have to imagine there's a lot of gambling, a lot of casinos that were built for the miners. And so perhaps a lot of debt that people get into.
Also, probably a lot less rules. I mean, our main bad guy, the governor guy, was basically like, "Hey, I own whatever I want to happen on this planet happens on this planet." So you can tell it's a very no democracy. He doesn't care about the average citizen. So murder, stealing, all the shenanigans. Probably there's not a lot of repercussions. So I could also imagine where it's kind of like, I want to go start a second life. And it also reminds me, just speaking of, I have no idea if they took any inspiration from this, but just speaking of movies and what how Total Recall affected movies, but just how you talked about maybe they went there for money and resources. Just remind me of Avatar, how they went to Pandemonium, Pandora,
Yeah.
that the blue planet, and they're like, hey, we're here for a mineral and we're gonna mine it, and how our main character kind of went there. I mean, not just for money, but because obviously he was hurting after the death of his brother and the loss of his legs. But again, there's just the small connections like that. I'm curious if there's any inspiration for James Cameron with Avatar.
Yeah, I could see that. A connection between this and the movie Alien, right, is the writer of Alien, was it Ridley Scott?
Well, I know Ridley Scott directed it. I don't know if he wrote
I don't
it.
know if he wrote it, but the person who wrote it envisioned them as space truckers. It's just like a cargo ship, and in dressing up the personal spaces of the various denizens of that ship, that's what he had in mind. Is these are blue collar workers. That was very much communicated here as well. The people that are on this planet are getting their hands dirty for the money that they have.
Yeah, and I mean that's so often when it comes to science fiction, often becomes a corruption of the government and how society is starting to break down. And it really is often the greed of the rich and powerful government has become so drastic that the 1% has become the 1% and the 99 has become the 99. There's no longer a middle class. It is now just the 1% and the 99, and how that will play out in a society is often depicted in science fiction. And I feel like you have that. Again, you have the Chancellor, or what was his epithet, his title? The bad guy?
I can't recall, but I'm happy you brought him up because I'd love to talk about him some.
Yeah, the cuck's boss. The boss of the cuck.
boss.
That guy.
The 1%. 1% of the 1%. That's him. He has total control over this colony, right? As long as he does his job, which is keep the minerals like flowing, the resources moving, he has free reign, right? And I think that's very well communicated through the tank of goldfish that he has, right? Feels symbolic of this world that he has total dominion over, right? These fish are at his mercy. They're kept within this confined tank, right? And only the space within the tank is habitable to them, and the world outside is inhospitable, right? And so he feeds them at his leisure, and they are at his mercy. And then the people of these like colonies are also at his mercy insofar as he can turn off their air at any point. And so later, in anger, he knocks over the goldfish tank, and they're gasping for air, right? And it's just a really cool parallel that they create visually.
No, that's a great point, and just how much he didn't care for the lives of people around him, I think was done well. Was he the best villain? Maybe not, but what made him an interesting villain was the twist. I did not see the twist coming. Because this is your second watch, but the original watch, did you see the twist coming of our main character actually being a bad guy?
No, I did not see it coming. I think it was very well executed. The thing that separates this villain from other villains in my mind that are more one note, right? Is he could have been a one note villain because he has this blatant disregard for the lives of all of the people that are under him. But then he has like a few people that he trusts and has affection for. One of those people happened to be Hauser, right? Who would become Douglas Quaid. Like when he is informed that he has to like get rid of Douglas Quaid, there is a genuine look of sadness in his eyes, right? And he's genuinely looking forward to his old buddy coming to his party that he's hosting later in the evening. And he's almost pleading with Douglas at the end of the movie. He's like, you had to screw things up, right? We were going to have a good time later. And that makes him, it's not that he's 100%, I mean, he is 100% selfish, but
It humanizes him a little bit.
it humanizes
It doesn't make him a good person, but it gives us some type of grounding point of like, oh, he can have friends. He can have things he cares for. He is not a tyrannical ruler who has nothing to lose and is so dehumanized of the human race that he's like, yeah, he's just a bad guy. I grant he still is all those things, but he's a little bit more of a human of like, okay, he has a friend, he cares for someone, and he's sad to see this person die. Hauser. But yeah, I really enjoyed when the Chancellor guy revealed that, hey, Douglas, joke's on you, buddy. You're actually evil like me. And so we get revealed that because it's led up to this point, the idea that Douglas was in the military. He was on Mars, but then when he found out how bad they were treating people, he revolted. But then they erased his memory, and now he's finding his memory back out, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, I remember how evil the government is. Must go stop them." But what actually happened is Hauser, who is Douglas Quaid, who is Arnold Schwarzenegger, was actually like, "Wait a minute, we can't find the rebellion leader. What if I pretend to like basically?" You erase my memory, and then I'll find out that my memory is erased, and I'll realize, oh, actually, I'm part of the rebellion because I was part of this military and they were bad, so I'm gonna go part of this rebellion. Basically, Hauser and the Chancellor cooked up this idea to help them find out where the rebellion was. Because who are they going to trust more in the rebellion than someone who's had his mind erased? And so it was all just a big ploy. And I loved it. And again, Jeffrey, like you said at the beginning of the episode, are we just humans that are a collective of our memories and what has happened to us in our life? If you were to take that away, we would be different people. Douglas Quaid arguably used to be an evil, horrible, despicable person. Now his memories are gone. He loves a different woman. He cares about people. He wants to be the hero. So was it this idea of like if you stripped everything, like, and it's also this idea of like once they took away certain memories, they still implanted ideas in Douglas Quaid's mind. These ideas that, oh, you defected from the military. Oh, you helped the rebels. Those were still technically false memories. So is Douglas Quaid or Hauser, like if you were to strip everything away from them, are they actually a good person that wants to be the hero? Or is Douglas Quaid only being a hero right now because they implanted in his memory that's what you should be? And he just ended up winning. Hey, we implanted in your mind that you should be a hero. Well, guess what? I'm going to be the most badass hero you ever saw, and I'm going to win. So at the end of the day, who was Douglas Quaid? Was he a good person? And what makes us good people? So I that's super fascinating.
Yeah, I mean it sort of relates to the nature versus nurture debate of which is the stronger influence on our lives. And this movie seems to err on the side of, or at least a lot of the characters in this movie err on the side of it's all nurture. It's all the ideas that you grow up with and the experiences that you have, right, that form you. Versus, I mean, yeah, like if you were to strip everything away from Douglas Quaid and let him make his own decisions. But then again, one can't make decisions divorced from past experience, right? That's how we learn language and social norms. It's an open question, and it's interesting to think about.
But yeah, all to be said, I really liked the twist and what the twist meant for the story of, yeah, who are we as people? What decides if we're good or bad? And the idea of like, what decides our memories and who we are. And I thought that was fun.
Yeah, and Quato basically saying it's not what you've done in the past that defines you. It's what you do in the present.
Good old Quato. I'm sorry. I don't care how wise Quato was. I would not take advice from him because he was scary.
But he had like such a gentle voice.
No. When Quato was like, come let me touch you so I can see your future see into you, I'd say, no, sir. I'm going to leave now. For those who haven't seen the movie, Jeffrey, can you describe what Quato is?
Yeah, so Quato is a neat little gent. Looks like a baby who's been severely burned and mutilated. And he's attached, like welded, onto the stomach of another person. He has hair where there shouldn't be hair. His lips are incredibly chapped. His eyes he looks blind. And he's psychic, but he has a gentle voice and a soft spirit.
He's like if the eraser baby got like welded onto someone's stomach.
Maybe I could see that. Like, I think that Quato looks a little more human, but he just looks, he looks like he's almost decomposing, right? He's just a really messed up human. Whereas Eraser Baby is a thing, and it.
I was just going to say, I feel like Quato looks like if a pig had sex with a jelly bean. And I feel like that's the best way I can describe it. That then got put onto a human stomach.
Yeah, that is a good analogy. I like that. I'm going to use it in describing Quato to people out and about now. Just without prompting, I'll just be like, Quato from Total Recall?
Well, take a pig and take a jelly bean. And that's what you have.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Nice to meet you.
By the way, my name's Jeffrey Nichols. This is what my child's going to look like. No, I'm kidding. I know you're the host, but we would be amiss. Our fans at home would be seething at the mouth if we did not, of course, take a minute to talk about Feminist Corner.
We have several notable lady characters in this movie.
Oh, at least 3.
Yeah, at least 3, that's for sure. And all of them are badass in their own ways, right? You've got the wife that was secretly the spy, right? Paid to keep tabs on Douglas Quaid. I thought she was incredibly cool, and every time she came on screen, I was impressed by her, right? She just has this aura about her. And then his lady friend at the club, I don't remember any of their names. I should get that out of the way.
I love how Jeffrey's like, we got 3 awesome, individual, unique, badass women. Can't remember a single one of their names, but Douglas Quaid has 2 names, and we can remember both of his.
I mean, I remember Hauser as far as the second name goes, but there's a first name to that last name. Maybe it's Douglas Hauser, but that feels wrong.
But I don't mean to interrupt you glazing these women.
No, I mean, I think that they held themselves very well in this movie and in fights. And I don't think this movie passes the Bechdel test, I'll say.
It might not pass the Bechdel test, but something I was kind of like, we haven't watched a lot of like action 70s and 80s films. Watch a handful. But like also I remember having this conversation about the Terminator, being surprised, but like, hey, the females weren't pathetic. They kind of like they held their own. Maybe they weren't like the main characters and always had the most depth or conversations, but they're not pathetic. I feel like the worst of them all was the Mummy. The main girl in the Mummy, I feel like, was so pathetic and needed saving. But both in Terminator and in Total Recall, again, they're not the most in depth. They're not our main characters. They're not having a whole lot of conversations. But at the bare minimum, at least they're kind of badasses. At one point, they're like the rebellion girlfriend and then his wife, who the wife is a bad guy, the rebellion girlfriend is the good guy. They're fighting, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is kind of incapacitated at some point. It's just those two going at it, and it's kind of cool to see that. Hey, they don't need no big strong man. I mean, they do at the end of the day, but in this moment, in this scene, they didn't need no big strong man.
Yeah, they both are very capable of holding their own weight and holding their own against, I don't know, impossible forces, and I think that's super cool. It's like the definition, the pinnacle of that 80s feminist badass hero that you get in Alien and where else? I mean, this movie. Gun-toting, big hair. It's a vibe.
If you like that, Jeffrey, we gotta watch The Matrix because no spoilers, but the opening scene of The Matrix is in fact a badass woman. And guess what? She's way better than having big poofy hair, having big guns, or having 3 tits. She has leather. She's fully clad in like BDSM leather for the whole movie. That's right, Trinity. But that's hopefully for next season or at some season in the future because I got to review. I'm sparsing out my favorite movies of all time. I can't do like one per season. If we're going to do this podcast for a long time, I only got a top 10 for so long.
And we could do like that's the first movie we open the next season with.
We'll have to see. But I mean, we're picking new categories soon. So if you guys have a category you want us to review, email it to us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. But speaking of these females, I did not care at all for the rebellion girlfriend. She was whatever. Who cares? I love the wife. She was so fun to watch. I thought she was awesome. I was so dumb and bamboozled. So again, at the beginning of the movie, when Douglas Quaid goes to get his memories implanted of Mars, the vacation on Mars, but he finds out he's a Secret Service and people are chasing him down. So all of a sudden he's in a big conspiracy. His coworker, his buddy, Brad, or whatever his name was, who's kind of a fat, pudgy dude, very dismissive. Like they're construction workers together. We find out he's part of like the secret government organization watching him. So all of a sudden you're like, whoa, who can you trust? Who's erasing his memories? So he goes home to his wife, and I'm still like, oh yeah, his wife, he can trust her. And then halfway through that conversation, he was like, yeah, they sent people after me. I don't know what's going on. We got to get out of here. I was like, oh no, she's in on the conspiracy. And it was great. Then they fought each other and she was so fun. And the best part is she's the wife to the cuck because the chancellor dude, the guy in charge of everything, his direct underling, the cuck, he's like, hey, since Hauser's like my best friend, we're going to wipe his memory. But, we got to set him up with a hot girl. So I'm going to take your wife and make him sleep with her for the next 8 weeks. And you have to surveillance it. And so I loved her for that reason. But I really enjoyed her. She definitely had this sense of competence, but also like a sense of depth. And I don't even know what that sentence means because we don't necessarily get to see her depth. But there's something interesting about her. You know who she vaguely reminded me of? The main girl from The Game, David Fincher's movie we reviewed way back at the beginning of the podcast. Because if you remember at the end of that movie, it's the main girl love interest is this girl that works for a company that basically manipulates people hardcore, that gaslight people to the 10th degree. And so there's this scene with the main character and this girl, and they're talking about her job and how she's like, yeah, that's what I do. I'm in a new city every other week because I'm just gaslighting people. And it just reminded me of the wife in this movie because she's like, dude, I don't even know who you are. We've only been married for 8 weeks. You have fake memories. And I just really enjoyed her. But yeah. So all that to be said, I just enjoyed the wife. She was a fun character. She felt dynamic. I loved watching her fight Arnold Schwarzenegger in her tennis-like leggings. It was just kind of funny. And she was just really enjoyable to watch. And she felt like this force to be reckoned with until Arnold Schwarzenegger exploded her brain with a gun.
Yeah, which was a great scene. It's like, you wouldn't shoot your wife, would you? He's like, consider this a divorce.
Yeah, because maybe I'm dumb, but this was a movie that I honestly didn't know where they were going with. And that's not to get too much in my holy moment at the very end of the movie, but like I just didn't know what was going to come next. And again, they put so much emphasis on the cuck wanting to regain his love interest that I really didn't think they were going to kill the wife. And then they killed the wife. And maybe I'm just dumb and I should have saw that coming. But when he killed her, I was like, oh, okay, that kind of took me by surprise. And so great. But the last thing I'll have to say about her, the worst shot in the entire universe. So when Arnold Schwarzenegger first shows up, he doesn't know the wife is going to double cross him. So he's like, we got to pack. I'm going into the bathroom. He went to the bath. Oh, he's washing the blood off his hands. And then he opens the door and she unloads like 6 bullets at him and misses all of them. And it's like, this man opened the door and you're standing right there, blank, like right there, a few feet away. You should have been able to kill him. And so I'm just like, okay, lady, what are you doing?
It's that plot armor, that every action hero has.
If any action hero is going to have plot armor, it would be Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, just look at the man.
Yeah, his rippling abs are his plot armor. The bullets just like ricochet right off of it.
I'd believe it.
Yeah, no, incredible scene, incredible fight. And I agree with you on the depth. I think that there was a surprising amount of depth with her and her real life partner, right? There was a sense that there is like affection there. There is real love there, as much as she hated every minute of her time with Douglas Quaid. And for those of you that are listening to the podcast, I did air quotes. Great line, by the way. Yeah, and that gave more depth to that underling villain that also could have been very one note. I think these characters play into archetypes, but there's just that one detail that makes them a little unique, that makes them a little more interesting. And that's what I appreciate about this movie. It's not your standard action fare, although it is close.
Yeah. And that's things I've talked about on the podcast before, just like doing the basics well, but then also just adding something a little bit interesting. It's an action movie through and through, but they found ways to make the characters a little bit more unique with the twists, making our main villain be like a little more likable, and making these characters that would just kind of be like the sub villain. Like I joke about the whole cuckold like storyline, but honestly, it makes it more interesting. The fact that the guy he's chasing after, he has a really specific grudge because he was forced to let his wife have sex with him. Like that's an interesting character. And so they just found these little ways to make all our characters fascinating. And then obviously Douglas Quaid, the most fascinating because he could have been the boring savior hero type person, but the fact was that he was a traitor secretly, and we at the end of the movie we still don't know who this guy is. If he gets his memories back, like the ones they erased, is he gonna turn evil? Like who is this guy and what is he really trying to do? He doesn't even know. Like at the multiple times he's like, who am I? What am I doing? So just adding these layers I find to make them all interesting.
I mean, the interesting thing about Douglas Quaid too is he's been brainwashed into being Douglas Quaid, whose motivations are a bit nobler than Hauser's, but he's not a great guy. He goes into recall and they're like, oh, you want to have a romantic getaway with an affair partner? Describe your perfect woman. And then he goes on to describe someone that is very much not his wife. And then he's like, okay, like tell me what's the perfect woman for you? It's like, give me someone sleazy. It's just
Which I'm happy that she ended up being sleazy, because when they asked that, I was surprised that his answer was sleazy, because we get a picture of the brunette at the movie opens up with a dream sequence and we see her, and they were kind of cute. They were holding hands on Mars, and I was like, oh, it's gonna be a cute girlfriend. And then we find out she's a prostitute. So I'm like, hey, he knew what he wanted deep down, and the fact that before he knew what was going on, he was killing people. Like granted, these people like. They were trying to kill him. They took him into an alleyway. They're going to shoot him. So I get it, self-defense. But real quick, he was snapping necks and like stomping people's throats out, just like at the drop of a hat.
That feels like muscle memory coming into play. But what doesn't feel like,
oh, for sure.
What doesn't feel like muscle memory is when he actually kills his wife, right? Strip shoots her in the head, right? There's a moment of hesitation. Like he doesn't have to, but he shoots her in the head, and then he gives that quippy line. Right? Consider this a divorce. If I were forced to shoot the person whom I had assumed was my wife for however many years, I wouldn't be dropping fun little one-liners like that, right?
Well, that's just because you're not like as cool as Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jeffrey. You know?
Maybe. But
Uh,
I think it does reveal that Douglas Quaid, Hauser, at their core, neither of them are particularly good or perhaps mentally stable.
and I like to believe that more. Again, it's much more fascinating than the knight in shining armor. I like to think that Douglas Quaid, if you strip away everything, I like to think that he is kind of this inherently selfish person. Oh, I'm having these dreams about Mars and this woman. Well, I'm not going to tell my wife about it. I'm going to go get these memories implanted in me. And he's just always seeking what he wants. And again, it's understandable. There's a splinter in his mind. There's this mystery. There's something gnawing at him. So I like it. It's an inside incident that pushes him forward. But at the end of the day, he still is kind of a selfish character. And we see that he cares for the people on Mars. He cares like, oh hey, you shouldn't let these prostitutes suffocate to death. That's bad. So there is some good in him. I'm not going to paint him as like this selfish bad person, but there's definitely moral ambiguity with his character.
Absolutely.
And it made him more fascinating.
I will say it's an incredibly low bar to not want thousands of people to suffocate to death.
That's fair.
I can kill my
Hey,
wife,
higher
no
than-
problem, but I don't want like this whole city to explode.
Yeah, my wife, prostitutes? Say less.
So yeah, I mean, it provides a nice bit of complexity to Douglas Quaid's character, who, again, could have been your standard fare action hero. I also think it's very interesting how adding another layer of complexity to the ultimate, like the villain, is at the end, he's trying to convince Douglas Quaid not to activate the reactor, right? And he's saying, listen, if you activate this reactor, this whole planet is going to go kaput, and you're putting everyone's lives in danger. And there was genuine fear, right, in his eyes as he expressed this. So I think that he is incredibly selfish, and he is the villain that everyone makes him out to be. But he does have his good friend Hauser, and it's not just a matter of I don't want the planet to get air. It's I don't know what'll happen if this thing turns on, and that's a more understandable and human reason for not wanting to go through a certain course of action than pure malice.
Which I think the directors did a great job. And this kind of getting to my holy moment, but just, they set up that, again, this movie is constantly playing with what is true and what's not true. What is reality and what's not reality. So last ditch effort, the bad guy is like, don't turn on this machine. We the audience and Arnold Schwarzenegger thinks this will save the planet. It will give us everyone fresh air. But the Chancellor's planting this idea in our brain. No. This will kill everyone. This will basically, it's too powerful. It will basically explode the planet. And we're like, you're the bad guy. Why would we believe you? But then when he turns on the machine and it like lets out you think for a moment, wait a minute, was he right? The shockwave of the air releasing almost feels like a volcano erupting. And you think for a split second, like, oh no, is this movie going to end a lot more bleak than I thought it was? Did you have that thought, or were you like, no, like this is obviously air and they're fine?
No, I did have that thought because the domes are collapsing, the glass shatters, and our main characters are suffocating, and this scene is drawn out.
Oh
right?
yeah,
it's not just a quick one and done thing. Explosion. Oh, are they in danger? No, they're fine. Like we're seeing these people actively suffer as a direct consequence of the air being released, right? And so I think it did a great job of creating tension and playing with our expectations. And you're right. I like that you pointed out that one of the recurring motifs of this movie is just playing with expectation and making us doubt ourselves and our surroundings and what people are saying to each other.
I mean, it really is. It's a movie through and through. You can't trust anyone, but it's more than you can't trust anyone. You can't trust yourself. It's giving a false narrative to the audience, and I really enjoyed that. The taxi crab. Ooh, someone should draw us a taxi crab. That's hilarious. The taxi cab driver, who's supposed to be the comedic relief, he ends up betraying them and is part of the evil army citadel bad guy. And so you just constantly get introduced to ideas and themes and what we think is going to be true. And it's better than just twists. It's better than a normal story where it's like, oh, it's just a twist. Like there are obviously twists throughout this movie, but it did a better job showing the theme of everything is not what it seems. Again, a lot like the Matrix, you can't trust anything. And that made the movie just so great for me. It's one of my favorite aspects. It probably might have been my favorite aspect was this concept of you can't trust anything around you because you don't know what is real and what's not real.
Each of the twists makes sense. It's not that oh, like a twist happens and then you're thinking, oh, but that's directly contradicted by that thing in the past. That just doesn't feel believable or in character for this person. It's like, no, I mean, these things very well could happen. And these circumstances very well could be the case. Well, if we want, we can go on ahead and move to our holy moments.
Yeah, I know. I'd love to. I thought a lot about this, and I think for me, it's the final scene, but for a culmination of reasons. So my original answer was going to be the practical effects, which is so true. Something that I remembered about watching the Terminator that I loved and doubled down in this movie. Man, action and squibs and gunshots and blood are not done the same way. Nowadays, everything's a lot more clean, a lot more quote unquote this new cinematic where everything just looks kind of uniform. These gunshots look much more realistic. I love when someone got shot and it was like their clothes exploded and this blood sprayed everywhere. Such a big fan of the practical effects. And then obviously of all the mutants on Mars really looked cool. But my favorite probably practical effect, which played into this concept, which is again this culmination of the final scene, which is my holy moment. So Douglas Quaid turns on basically a big old air conditioning unit. And moments before that, the main bad guy, the Chancellor, gets shot outside where there's no air, and his head grotesquely expands, and then it kind of basically like explodes, and he dies. A few seconds later, after turning on the big air conditioning, so does Douglas Quaid and his rebel girlfriend. They get shot out there, and their faces are expanding, their eyes bulging out. But then we see, like Jeffrey said, this air explode, erupt out of the volcano. Glass shattering, mountain shaking, cars flipping, and just it went on for so long. And I was like, one of two things is about to happen. He's going to wake up and it's all going to be a memory, or the planet is going to explode and they're all going to die. I just like they did such a good job of leading me on. It's like, I don't know what's going to happen. We're at the climax of the movie. I should know what's about to happen. And I didn't know what was going to happen. And then the air settled down. Everyone was able to breathe. And then we go to a happy ending. But like Jeffrey pointed out, but was it? It's still open. There's still a slight of ambiguity of what if he just painted this whole story? He wanted to be a hero. What if at the end of the day, Douglas Quaid is just a construction worker who lives a boring life with a super, super hot wife, but ultimately he's just a boring blue collar worker who's done nothing great in his life, and that's all he is. And that's really haunting. And this is just a memory that he desperately wanted and paid, 18,000 credits for. And so for all those reasons, the practical effects, the story, the stress that they were able to induce within the last few minutes of a movie, I feel like that culminated that final scene in my holy moment.
Yeah, I mean, think about the implications of if this is all a dream, right? He has to wake up and he has to go to his wife, whom he shot in the head, fully believing it was her. And that's something that he consented to. That's something that he wanted to do. And so I think that also puts a greater stain on Quaid's character, right? If it turns out that this all was fake. Again, like I don't think that you could do a sequel with these same characters because that ending was perfect, right? The perfect note to end this movie on. It really ties. Ironically, it leaves the question open of is this a dream or is this reality? But it ties together all of those threads of, like the thematic threads of, is this real or is this not? Can I trust my surroundings? I love how they keep it open. My personal theory is that it was real. And here's my reason for thinking that. At the beginning, when we're in the office of the Total Recall people and he's had his freak out, we see them talking amongst each other about said freak out. That is not something that he would be privy to, and so he would have no memories of it. And the whole idea of the implant machine is they're implanting memories. And because we see that moment that he is not privy to, that makes me think that the events were real. But I think there's still room for disagreement, and that's the beauty of it. This is the thinking man's action film. Or it is a thinking man's action film. Perhaps not the. There are plenty more action films that have themes that are worth chewing on. But yeah, this is a movie that you'll come out of and you'll be talking to your buddies about in the parking lot for at least an hour or two. I love the themes of identity and what makes a person a person, like that person specifically. And I love how ambitious the movie was in concept, and I think that ambitious concept was ultimately my holy moment. Not so much a moment as an idea.
Both good points. I like when we can watch movies, and like that's why I love the holy moment. I love that it can be any moment, any idea, any part. But I do like when we watch movies and our holy moments are much bigger concepts, bigger than life things than maybe one little scene or one little action. I like when sometimes they can encompass bigger themes.
With that being said, what do you give this?
Oh, I was thinking a lot about it. I think I'm going to give it a 3.5, which is good. At first I was like, that's too low. But I was like, honestly, if we're doing it out of a scale of 5, 2.5 is average. It's good. So 3.5, that's a good tick over it. I liked, as we talked about, all the things I liked, all the themes, all the characters. Still pretty campy, still a little over the top, still lacked a certain level of character development and storytelling that I'm used to in the 21st century. That maybe not like you, I wasn't going to be able to relate to these characters in an extreme way or love the story for that. I still liked it for everything we said, but for those reasons, it didn't like hit me in the heart by any means at all. Still an impressive feat of storytelling, but for me to really reach into that higher level of 4 and 5s, I have to have a bigger emotional reaction to it, and that can't happen with action. I have felt that with other movies. So for that reason, still great, still solid, still really enjoyed. 3.5. What about you?
I am going to give it a 4, and I think it's going to be in part because of the campiness and the over-the-top nature of some of the scenes and some of the scenarios. I actually found that highly entertaining, and I didn't think it detracted. I think it added all of the quippy one-liners that are incredibly cheesy. I was just eating it up. And so for that reason, entertainment-wise, as well as ambition of concept and quality of execution, 4.
That's a very honorable reason. That doesn't make any sense. That's a very good choice to go with. How does it feel, Jeffrey? You did it. You made it through all of your picks for season 2. You're done.
Yeah, I mean, it feels good. I'm excited to see your movie, which, as I understand it, will be a heavy one, right?
Yes. So yeah, no spinning the wheel this week, guys. We literally only have one movie left for this season, and it is Come and See, a World War II war movie. And I want to go in really blind, but for this movie, I want to just like ever so slightly context, like the cinematography, the vibe, just something. So I watched like a trailer and I read comments, and like all of them were like, "Oh, this was a cinematic masterpiece, hella heavy." So I am beginning to prepare my heart, soul, and mind for a 2.5-hour excursion into Come and See and the atrocities of World War II. But super excited. It is often referred to as one of the greatest cinematic masterpieces of all time and one of the most important movies ever made. So I'm really excited to really dive in and talk about it.
I didn't know that. That
and hopefully not cry.
Yeah, that makes me incredibly stoked to see it. It's like 3 hours long?
2.5. So it's long, but not, it's long, but not too aggressive. Yeah.
It's like Lincoln.
I'm going to try and start it not at like 11 o'clock like I've been doing. I'm going to try and start it like at a normal time, like 8 p.m.
Now, folks, we haven't received any emails from y'all, and we keep on reminding you. And so I'm going to remind you one more time that our email is theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com. I won't say it again unless you don't send any emails, and then I'll say it again so that you can be reminded. I'm not going to come at you with any threats because that hasn't worked so far.
Yeah, maybe our audience is like words of affirmation over words of condemnation.
You are so pretty and good, especially if you email us at theholymomentpodcast@gmail.com.
I bet all of you look like the opposite, as if a pig had sex with a jelly bean. I can only assume. And I hope and pray for society. But yeah, you should email us because, guys, after next episode, it'll be the end of the 2nd season. We'll go into the 3rd season. But again, this podcast, we do it by genres, not genres, categories. So we pick 6 categories. We each pick a movie for the category. So that's 12 episodes. So that's about 3 months. So send us some category ideas in. They could be anything. They could be really boring, like, I want to watch a pirate movie. Or they could be really specific, like, hey, I want a movie where 2 dogs fall in love, and then at the 30-minute mark, there's a pterodactyl that eats one of them. Whatever you want the categories to be, we're here for you, audience.
It can be something concerning the behind the scenes of the movie. Like, someone died in the making of this movie.
We could make a movie and kill Jeffrey so you could choose that movie. We'd only have a week to do it, though, so let us know.
Yeah, let's not do that. Please.
But no, the audience gets to decide, Jeffrey. Okay?
All right. Well, I vote against that idea, but I leave the rest of the votes to you, our dear audience.
Well, I guess it's usually Jeffrey's job to say where you can find us, but since he's the host, I'll take on the burden today. You can find us on all the little platforms, the little Facebook, TikToks, YouTubes, Instagrams. You can find the podcast anywhere you can find the podcast. Something we haven't been saying, but it means a lot. Go review the podcast on like Spotify or Amazon. Leave a 5-star review. It makes it a lot more accessible and findable from other people. We really appreciate it. We're trying to make a community of movie lovers and film watcher peoples. Let's do it together. All right, Jeffrey.
All right. With that being said, we love you. We'll see you next week, and make a lot of money.